evening, Walton Verona Middle School parents, guardians, and students. It's Mr. Morwessel, principal here at Walton Verona Middle School. Looking forward to welcoming back all of our students to the 2020-2021 school year, even though it will be much different because we will be starting the year on NTI. It has been great the last couple of days to see students and parents coming in from our 7th and 8th grades to pick up their Chromebook devices. 5th and 6th grade, we're not leaving you out. Remember, you guys are coming in next week to pick up your devices. So while this is much different way of having to conduct school, we are looking forward to the challenge here this fall to make adjustments to make this a world-class educational opportunity for our students. Back in the spring, when we went on NTI within 48 hours notice, we were simply trying to maintain some structure of education for our students over the last portion of the school year. Starting with the fall, we know we need to get students back to new learning. So we will be first of all looking at what students may not have learned at the end of the school year and then build upon that as we go through the year. So I want to go over a few things with the non-instructional learning and what to expect from not only our teachers and staff, but what we expect from the students and what help we need from you as the parents. The first thing is, while we're on NTI instruction, the hybrid A-B groups and the 100% virtual groups, those aren't significant right now. Everybody's basically virtual with the non-traditional instruction. So if and when we get back to face-to-face instruction sometime soon, hopefully, we will then revisit the hybrid models, and we will probably have to resurvey parents to see where everyone stands at that time, depending on when it is. So first thing I want to make sure that everybody knows, school starts Monday, August 24th. We are not in person. We are virtual using NTI. 7th and 8th grade students, since you've already picked up your Chromebooks, you will have assignments given to you starting Monday. 5th and 6th grade parents and students, don't worry. No penalties, nothing to worry about. Until we get your devices passed out, you will not need to be responsible for any assignments. So students in the 6th grade, you're going to be picking up your devices on Monday. There won't be any assignments assigned until Tuesday. 5th grade, you're going to be in here Tuesday and Wednesday to pick up your devices, whichever day you signed up for. So no matter which day you pick up your device, assignments won't be posted until next Thursday, which is August 27th. Parents, we appreciate patience as we get these devices out, but wanted to make sure that nobody has to worry about what your student's doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday if they haven't gotten their device, depending on their grade level. So NTI instruction, a few things to know. First of all, the instruction will not be synchronous. In other words, it won't be live. We don't do live TV here, but basically your student will be able to log in, and we're going to be using Google Classroom as the platform for every class your student takes. So everything will be via Google Classroom. Every teacher will have Google Classrooms for your students to log into. Most students are very familiar with Google Classroom if they weren't prior to this past spring. They are now. So your student schedule will have their Google Classroom codes on it for every class. At your orientation time, when you come pick up information for your child and meet your child's teachers, they will also have Google Classroom information in there, so that you will have all the information you need for your child to join the correct Google class. So students will be able to log into their Google class anytime during every day. There will be instruction every day for every student, Monday through Friday. Again, the hybrid model is not in play right now. NTI instruction, there is something every day for every student. So a teacher will probably record a video to begin every class, and that will be the direct instruction or the instructions for the day. It might be a 10-minute video providing some form of direct instruction for students so that they learn new content. And then there might be some practice activities that they will do that will all be posted via Google Classroom. Some of them will use other programs. Some of them might use some materials that the students already have, but there will be activities to enhance what the teacher is teaching. Teacher may come back with another short video, either of themselves or some videos we have on another program that we have utilized to give additional instruction or feedback. And then that will be the lesson for the day that the student has to go through, and there probably is going to be something to turn in each day or something they might be working on over a course of a couple of days to turn in that will be turned in through the Google Classroom. So with that being said, if your student has been on a schedule and they wake up and they're ready to go at 8 o'clock, they can log in and view any class they want in any order at that time. Um, Sometimes for some of the families, it might be better off for students to work later in the day, depending on the level of support they need at home. And that is perfectly fine. There's a lot of flexibility there. It's just students will be expected to log on daily and complete assignments for their 5 core classes every day. Those 5 core classes are reading, writing, math, science, and social studies. We'll get to encores in a minute. So the expectation will be that students are working for upwards of 45 minutes per core class per day. That's just over 3.5 hours. We're obviously not going to start there on day 1 or even day 5 or 6, but we're going to build to that. Okay. Those core teachers will be starting with very small chunks of information, maybe looking at that 10 to 15-minute range per day to start. That helps teachers adjust the workload to make sure that they're meeting uh, reasonable expectation for students working for each class. Again, build 45 minutes per day per class. So they can make those adjustments. It also helps our students build some endurance. You don't go straight to running a marathon. You start out with smaller increments. So we're going to start out with smaller increments of work each day. Maybe for the first week, it's 15 minutes. If students are doing well with that, the teacher will increase it to maybe 25 minutes or 30 minutes. And over the course of the first few weeks of the school year, build to that 45 minutes so students are ready. It's not overwhelming. We're building to that point. So teachers will be looking at that, making those adjustments, because, again, the learning virtually still can't be replaced by being in person. We know that. So a teacher, what they can accomplish in a regular class period of 54 minutes, they're not going to be able to accomplish all of that in a 45-minute period of time virtually. So we're making those adjustments so that new instruction is going on, but doing it reasonably in a method and time frame that students will be able to um, uh, process and work through. Now, encore classes. Normally, students have been used to here at the middle school having 3 encore classes at a time on an A day, B day, C day rotation. That's going throughout the year. This year, we're going to do a little something different anyway, and we're going to go to AB days, but do that an AB day for the first semester, which starts at the beginning of school all the way up until winter break, and then do 2 new A day, B day encores after we return from winter break for 4 total encores during the year. Now that we're on NTI and with the unpredictability of how this school year may go, we're only going to have students focus on 1 encore class at a time. That's especially important during NTI because students are going to have to manage 5 core classes and 1 encore. We don't want to stress them out or stress the parents out that your student has more than they can handle while we're trying to learn new material. So on your child's schedule, your A-day encore class for first quarter will be the encore that they're responsible for the first 9 weeks of the school year. And that's regardless of whether we're on NTI. If we do get the chance to return in person on a hybrid model, that'll still be their encore until we end the 9-week grading period. The only exception is those students that are in our RTI reading and RTI math programs. That'll be ongoing support, and those 2 teachers will be working individually with students on that. We still want students to have the experience of another encore if they have one besides the RTI, but we need to provide that RTI support throughout the course of the school year. So we will work to balance that as well. One thing is, well, how am I going to get support from my child's teachers? We have a plan for that. And again, we'll make adjustments as we go. Right now, teams are planning that their teachers are available in at least hour-long increments throughout the day via Google Meets live meetings. These meetings are intended to provide support for instruction that students don't understand. In other words, the student would need to log into the lesson before the Google Meets. Or if they logged into the lesson today after the Google Meets, make sure they get onto tomorrow's Google Meets to get clarification on that. But we want to try to keep students on their daily routine. So a student can't just log into the Google Meets to try to get the direct instruction. That's already on the Google Classroom. The Google Meets live meetings are for when a student is struggling to understand that they can get with that teacher and ask individual questions. So it could be 15, 20, 30 or more kids at a time on that meets, and they all might all have the same question, and it could be answered by one person asking it. And then that way the student can go back with the feedback and complete the lesson. The other way that teachers, so that's 1 hour live per day. The other way they're going to be available is via email. Teachers will be checking their email throughout the course of what we would consider a normal school day, 8 to 3. But they also will be checking it at different times of the day outside of that time. But we want to be reasonable and flexible. If you send an email in the morning to a teacher with a question about that day's lesson, I would expect no later than lunchtime, you've got a response, depending on what time. If you send it at 8 in the morning, I would hope by 9 or 10 o'clock, you've got a response. Teachers are going to be trying to balance that. It depends on when their Google Meets are. If you send an email at noon, 1 or 2 o'clock is reasonable. As we start to get closer to dinner time hours, realize that everybody needs to have their family time and work within their um, boundaries of what their family needs. Some of our teachers do have students that are in school, and they might need to work with their student on their work, and they might block off their evening time to do that so that they can be available for your students during the day. So if you send an email at 6 o'clock at night and don't get a response right away, understand that you might get a response first thing in the morning. There's also going to be some teachers that do have some nighttime hours that they're working, and you might get your answer at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, even after your child's gone to bed, but it will be there the next morning. So don't get frustrated with that. I don't want kids to get frustrated, but the support is there throughout the day, and we will make adjustments as we see is needed. But being available 1 hour a day via live Google Meets and being available through email throughout the day should provide the support we hope that students will need. So, with that being said, I want to get into a few things that you, as the parents, can do in the home to help set your student up for success. I realize every family is different. Many of you are working still, and you can't always be there to look over your child. Depending on the age of the child, they should be able to navigate Google Classrooms on their own, especially with that layer of support from the teachers. Just do a few things that can really help. A lot of kids need structure, so get them on a schedule. They don't have to necessarily follow the school schedule. But I'm sure some of your kids maybe have been sleeping longer than you want them to. So get them up and get them into the routine of school, because we're hoping that we can get back to face sooner than later. But we don't have control over that. And until we do, we've got NTI. So get them on that schedule. Provide an adequate place in the home for students to get work completed. Every student's different. Some students need no distractions. Some students can work through some distractions. Just make sure within their schedule they have that place to work. If the playroom is where they're working, that might not be the best place. So work what works, do what works for your student and your family. Make sure to give them a break after each class. Again, the goal is to get them to work about 45 minutes per core class per day, but there should be a break between each one of those. They get that when they're here at school. A class change might be 3 to 5 minutes where they get the chance to, their brain gets to shut down for a moment, but they're traveling from another class and they might need to get some things out of their locker. They might need to use the restroom, get a quick drink. At home, they can get a snack. Give them that 5 minutes. Maybe not 20 minutes after every class, but give them a reasonable amount of time so then they can get right back to it. Also think of longer breaks, definitely like maybe in the middle of the day. Maybe they do 3 classes, then you center it around lunch maybe, and give them 30 minutes or so to really get a break from schoolwork, get lunch, um, and then get back to it maybe after 30 minutes, because that's pretty routine here at school. The other thing is they do at least a couple times a week when they're here at school, get some activity time, recess. Um, Feel free to add that in, especially on nice days when the weather's nice, let them go outside for 15 or 20 minutes at a time, even, so if their school day, if they're doing their 4 hours of work, um, 3.5 hours of work, that might be spread out over a 7 hour time frame or a 6 hour time frame, and that's perfectly fine. But just set it to a routine and a schedule, giving them short breaks in between, and maybe a longer 30-minute break for lunch, and maybe another break for 20 to 30 minutes for some activity to get a work. So it's not so monotonous. It breaks it up a little bit because they do get that in a normal school day. Um, And the final thing is don't let them get frustrated. Use the Google Meets time. If they're getting frustrated with something, it's 8 o'clock at night and you can't get on a Google Meets, or you're probably not going to get an answer until the morning, shut them down, let them get caught up in the morning. I don't want kids to get too far behind, but I don't want them sitting there just being frustrated, because then the whole experience has the potential not to be as good as we want it to be. So while this experience is going to be different for everybody, we're going to do everything in our power here at Walton Verona Middle School to make it a very valuable learning experience. Students will be expected to complete work every day. We're going to be keeping an eye on those students that are falling behind, and we really need parent support to help because we will work with you. We have the opportunity possibly to offer some targeted services. We're going to meet as a district early next week, and we're going to see about the opportunity about getting some students in here that need additional support based on the guidelines we've been given. So it could be academic support, and we're going to focus on those students that really need the extra help, um, depending on whether they have a specially designed program that they might be able to have better access to if they're here, or students that are just struggling in general that maybe just need a little help once or twice at a time. And then I also really worry about our students' social and emotional needs right now, and we really want to be able to meet those emotional needs. This is a tough time. Students, it's a tough time for adults. Um, this has obviously not happened in over 100 years, and even in today's world, it's very challenging. So we want to be able to take care of some of that. So we hope to have some information on what those targeted services might look like, where students can actually come into the building in small groups based on the guidelines from the Kentucky Department of Education and the local health department. So look forward to some of that information. We'll get that out. I wanted to make sure I cleared up some things about the start of the school year, um, and what to expect with NTI instruction, and what I expect of students. So we want to get students back to learning. I wish it was in person, but it's not, and we're going to make this the best experience it can be. So reach out to me with any questions. Please feel free to reach out to your child's teachers with any questions. And we look forward to school starting on Monday. Go Bearcats!